Welcome back from your coffee break, everyone. Pleased to meet you all. My name is Peter O'Brien. I am a journalist at the television channel, TV news channel France 24, which is a public channel broadcast all around the world. Great to be here at UNESCO with all of you today. Fascinating panels and discussions so far. Strangely moving in many ways with it being the 10-year anniversary. So thank you very much for inviting me to come and host this panel, which is on open infrastructures for software as a digital public good. Now, I have to admit, when I read the description for this panel, even as someone who's specialized in tech for a number of years, I found it a little bit daunting. That was up until the expert explanations by Roberto, so thank you for that. But luckily, we are surrounded by many experts in the room who will have no issues whatsoever understanding everything that is at stake. Because as has been said already, we know that open science is at a critical juncture. And now is a more important time than ever to have this discussion that we are having today on this topic. So how do open infrastructures as a digital public good serve people like me, people like you in the room, researchers, civil society, scientists, journalists, educators? Who better to discuss that than Omar Mohsine from the Office of the UN's Digital Envoy? Let's give him a round of applause. We also have a last-minute change in scheduling, so we were expecting, as is on your programs, Angola's Secretary of State for Technology. Unfortunately, she can't make it anymore, so joining us from a piece of software online is Eurico Wongo Gungula, who is Rector of the Oscar Ribas University and UNESCO's focal point for open science in Angola. Let's give a round of applause. Cédric Auliac joins us from GENCI. For those of you who don't know, that's part of France's supercomputing infrastructure. So, Cédric, thank you for being here. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. And finally, this is Tanja Foch. She is from Informatics Europe and the European Research Consortium for Informatics and Research. I'm just rushing a bit because we have 40 minutes left before Cédric has to go and look after a child. So I'm going to ask each of our guests here to give a very short explanation as to why they are here today. Shall we start with you, Tanja?
Thank you very much. I'm also very happy to be here. It's a very nice experience to be at UNESCO. I'm actually a professor of software engineering. I work at the Technical University in Valencia in Spain and also at the Open Universiteit in the Netherlands. And I'm here, what I want to bring to the panel is actually a practical concern. Because today, well, we have talked a lot about software and how important it is. And we all know that software is at the foundation of our digital society. And we know that software is at the foundation of all the emergent technologies, AI, quantum technology, and even software is at the foundation of the software heritage archive. Yeah, because if you want to get all this preserved knowledge out, you need software tools. Yeah, so what we didn't talk too much about today is about software engineering. And software engineering has traditionally been the discipline, the scientific discipline that does research on how to build dependable software systems. Yeah, systems that are reliable, safe, and trustworthy. And what we see actually happening today is that software is more and more seen as a supportive digital component. Yeah, and people act as if software engineering has solved all problems. Yeah, and we're far from the truth. No, there's a lot of problems that we still need to solve in software engineering. And what's more, there's new problems coming our way because of the AI that is actually totally changing the way in which we are building software systems. And AI is actually also a software system that needs to be properly engineered. So my concern is that it's a risk for society to look at software engineering from the wrong point of view, because our society actually depends on software and the digital systems it supports.
Thank you, Tanja. Not to put Eurico on the spot because you've only recently joined us, but tell me how important open science is for Angola.
First of all, I'd like to thank the organizing committee for the invitation extended to the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Technology and Innovation, which allow us to share Angola's perspective on software heritage. From our perspective, this initiative is very important because has changed the view that we have seen open sources and other initiatives. So for Angola is taking steps to advance open science as a foundation for equitable knowledge, and open science supports national research visibility, knowledge circulation, and evidence-informed policy making. So for Angola, recognizes software heritage as a critical global infrastructure for preserving software sources code as part of humanity's digital heritage. Its mission aligns closely with Angola's objective in open science also. And everything we have made is to share with all national infrastructure, national institutions, the main importance of all that have been done until this moment. So we construct recently the national repository for open science that will be an infrastructure that will help Angola to strengthen all these initiatives. And for my first comments, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you very much, Cédric.
Yeah, so nice to be here. So eventually software has to run on an actual computer, and when researchers need loads of storage and CPUs and GPUs, basically we are here to build the infrastructure. So we are responsible for providing the public computing infrastructure in France. And the relationship we have with precisely with software heritage is that one of our computing centers, the CINES near Montpellier, will be in charge of centralizing the resources of software heritage in the future. So basically, it's a dirty job, but someone has to do it. You have to build infrastructure, run all this, and this is what we do. Of course, another point regarding open software and open science. Basically, we provide a public service. We provide a computing public service to researchers, both from the academics and private sector. And there's a catch. What we ask in return for free computing resources is for them to publish the results of their work. So everything we do ends up as open research. So this is how we are directly connected to the mission of software heritage.
Thank you very much. Now, Omar, perhaps you can talk a bit about your project within the UN specifically, and why open science is such an important project for the UN to pursue right now.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Omar Mohsine, work for the UN Office of Digital Emerging Technologies, and I'm one of the 6 people with the tie today, so thank you for the other 5 for solidarity. Why open source? Why does it matter for us? And the values of open source, this transparency, that is openness, that is collaborative, that people from everywhere in the world can work on it, just aligns with the values of the UN that we're building, that built on. And we all watch you as open source community, and what you managed to build is exactly what we've been designed as to build, where you have people from every country, from different countries, from speaking different religions, speaking different languages, having different background, all working together, building a software that is public good for all of us. So we're trying to now leverage that power of open source for us internally first. We want to be more and more using open source versus a closed source. But also we want to, going forward, to co-create with you. There's We want to tap into this incredible community of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who code at night before going to bed just for a good cause, and be able to work with you so you could fix some of the problems that we have identified working with our constituency. And most importantly, the Sustainable Development Goals, we have 4 years now to go. They're ending in 2030. We're behind schedule in a lot of them. And we identified that technology is one of the main means of implementing the Sustainable Development Goals. So how can we work all together with young people at universities, with government, with private sector, with the whole global community? How can we leverage that technology in order to be able to answer some of the SDGs and speed up the adoption of SDGs? So these are some of the problems we're trying to solve at the UN. And for that, we're using the convening power of the UN. I have children, and all they talk about is superpower. So I try to find, so the UN superpower, we have a superpower, is that we can convene. We can bring everybody from everywhere. So we're trying to use the convening power of the UN in order to start a global discussion about open source. We call that the UN Open Source Week. It happens every year in New York. Raise your hand if you've attended Open Source Week at least once. Wow, thank you. So all the others, please join us. It's in June of this year. And this is one of the venues we try to start a discussion around that.
Yeah, because we wouldn't all be here if all of this was solved. As much as this is a celebration of 10 years of this partnership, I also want to know what are the difficulties that are yet to be overcome. So perhaps I can ask this to Cédric and Tanja. If we look at the infrastructure behind open science and open software, whether it be hardware or software-related solutions, what are the big hurdles and the big difficulties yet to be solved?
Well, maybe the biggest challenge is to bring them together. I mean, one of the, so I'm running the French node of AI Factory, which is a European program, and basically the idea of AI factories is to build on top of our supercomputers a set of services to help AI researchers to push through their research. And one of the things they need on top of computing basically is data and software tools. And you know, in the jungle of public-private research, for engineers and researchers, finding the proper data set, the proper software, and being, you want this software or data set to be accessible, to be reliable, it's not easy at all, even when you have all the GPUs and CPUs you want. So one of the biggest challenges we have now and what we're trying to achieve is to really provide the access to data spaces and data sets like the one of software heritage regarding source code to all the researchers that also use our computing power, really bringing them together because you need, especially in AI, you need both. You need the computers and the data.
I think also a challenge is maybe that we don't really know what is going to happen with all software development and software, no? Because we see that the way software is being built, it's totally changing. Yeah, so at companies, everybody is vibe coding, and that means that you just write your specification in natural language, you give it to an LLM, and software comes out. And if that piece of software does not do what you want, well, then you rewrite your specification and you generate it all over again. So there is a challenge there, no? Because there's going to be more source code. I also think this is a challenge for the archive, because if software is not being refactored anymore, but just built from scratch every time you find something, because LLMs are better in building from scratch than refactoring something, then repository will grow fast, no? Because then it's every commit is a whole entire system. So yeah, we are at the beginning of the beginning to know what's going on. And I also think, because I was thinking when you were saying that about open source, will closed source still exist in the future? Because if an LLM can just make a system, you just give it the system specification and it can make a copy of it, I mean, then it doesn't really make sense to have closed source anymore, and everything will be open source.
I mean, it sounds like AI does present this looming challenge, headache, a monumental amount of new software which we're not sure whether it should be archived or not, or which kinds we should be archiving. We can talk about all of that for sure, and do feel free to share your thoughts on that. Is AI also helping the archiving process in some ways? Don't know if anyone has thoughts on that.
I guess it does.
Yeah.
And I think it's also because the whole archive and all the source code that is in there is actually like a lot of, it's food for people to do their research and get the knowledge out, but also obviously for the LLMs. So there's a lot of information in there that LLMs can use to know more about how to build software. So.
In terms of the multiplication, we saw it there on the charts earlier, with the amount of stuff being archived. As someone works in the public sector myself, we're looking at this and thinking about the potential cost. Maybe this is a question for Eurico and Omar. How are you talking about the cost that this could incur for public institutions, and what role do private companies play in this archiving process?
I can go first. So we have to just get out of the myth that open source is free. It's not, and it needs funding. Maintaining open source is not free, and it's a big problem, and it needs funding. And here, just want to quote, there are a couple of big examples of either private sector companies, but also government who are really on top of that. Like the big example is the Sovereign Tech Fund of Germany. I know there's a lot of discussions for the EU level, something similar, but also private sector. So I know, I don't want to name anyone, but there's a lot of money being currently channeled through multiple means to help maintain and fund open source. However, I just want to raise a little room for improvement, is that it's all done in silos, unfortunately. So whoever is funding and whoever is maintaining is doing things on their own. And really, we think that we could completely bring a lot of efficiencies and multiply the effect, the impact we could do if we coordinate. And this would like to. We need to find ways or mechanisms by which we can make sure that this funding is done as a together thing.
Eurico, do you have thoughts on that from an Angolan perspective?
Yeah, from the Angolan perspective, we have many challenges because until now we have been working on construction of national network about open science, but it is not always easy. And we got another experience about the construction of the National Repository of Open Science. So funding still be a big problem that we face here. We have worked with the public institution with the support of our Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Technology and Innovation to spread the importance of open sources and other similar initiatives. So when we go to private companies, the understanding that they have is totally different because we're still facing, like with all initiatives about closed access and open access. So we are in a very beginning process. Since the last 5 years, this have been the way to follow. Happily, in last 2 years, we start making part of the global conversation, participating in global summit that help Angola to understand or to deepen his understanding about this process. So funding still be a very big barrier, even for public and private institutions. And I'm hope that in the next days, on the days to come, this understanding will change and we will get a very, a broader understanding of this process.
I noticed in the description of this panel, it's mentioned that code archives can be a neutral enabler behind the scenes serving science and society. Now, as a journalist, my impulse is always to think, well, actually, someone is always surely pulling the levers. So, for instance, when we see this mirror structure come around in Europe, how optimistic can we be that this will replicate worldwide? And is that the only way forward for resilience, or are there other avenues as well? I'm going to pick on you, Cédric, just because obviously being part of the EU AI factory, you might have thoughts on this multilateralism.
That's a tricky one. I would be extremely optimistic regarding the European dimension. For worldwide dimension, it's honestly, I wouldn't be competent to tell you. I prefer to hand over to you because I will.
Yeah. Well, Omar, this is more your domain, perhaps, when you're looking at all the different UN countries and their engagement into this. Is the kind of mirror structure the way forward for UN, or are you thinking about different structures in terms of international collaboration on open infrastructures?
Yeah, I think here I just want to highlight a couple of examples that exist. So first, there are multiple registries that were defined that. For us, to make it easy for member states, for countries to take over things that is proven that is working. And here, I want to take a second to talk about the digital public good registry. So the digital public good, the term was coined by the UN panel 7-8 years ago. And at the time, we defined what are the standards that makes a software, an open source software, really worth preserving and labeling and treating separately. So this is where we call the digital public goods. Digital public goods, there are 230 plus by now, and this is just a way for us to tell, hey, government, whatever you're dealing with, and probably for sure some other government somewhere in the world had the same problem, or some other organization somewhere in the world had the same problem, and they built this software. And we looked at it, we reviewed it, and we think it is something ready for you to use. So Digital Public Good Registry, take a look, has a lot of really very important tools. And together now we're talking with my colleague Serge is here from UN University and Asian Development Bank, what could be the criteria for an AI to be considered as a public good. So we're trying to go beyond the normal, the software and try to imagine what could be the criteria that makes is any open source AI a public good AI? Do we want to ask an open source AI to do a lot more for the world, to be relevant to the SDGs? What could be these conditions that will make an open source AI labeled as an AI that does public good for the world that we want to treat separately and have special registries to store it? So this is one of the things we're trying to bring together the different elements happening around the world and have them enshrined and institutionalized in this archives.
So to be clear, that will mean new policy or just new international collaboration of some description? So
yeah, to come up with the standard will obviously it's a together work that is no one government, no one institution. It has to be absolutely multi-stakeholder, and we believe a lot in anything we do is a multi-stakeholder, be it the definition, but also the Digital Public Good Alliance that is now the custodian of the digital public good is a multi-stakeholder entity in which we have government, private sector, academia, civil society. So it is really in our DNA that going forward, whatever we do cannot be only dictated by specific country, group of country, or international organization, or group of international organizations. So, yeah.
Thanks, Omar. Tanja, I'm just checking did you want to input on that one from an Informatics Europe perspective? Or?
Well, I think what you said now, so regulation, policies, collaboration would be, but indeed the mirrors and the replication and to make sure that you do not have a single point of failure. You know, if something goes wrong politically, technically, or by humans, then at least you have a backup. So I think for now, but we don't know. No, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We are in a really unsure kind of thing. But for now, I think this is a good solution to try together with what Omar is saying.
And I'm sure for all of you working in this space, the security question will come up again and again and again for whether it be a public partner or a private partner. Is this a conversation that's now moving on? Do people understand the benefits of open infrastructure from a security perspective, or are you still having to remind people of the potential benefits? Go on, you're laughing over there.
Yeah, because generally speaking, we still have a lot of users considering that a software is way more secure when it is not disclosed, which to me doesn't make sense, but it's a pretty strong a priori still. It's particularly problematic in the realm of AI, which is my specialty, because now we all know that a big difference between an AI model and a regular software application is that even if you have the source code, you don't have a clue about how it works internally. So having the source code of your model, having open weight models, don't help you at all to guarantee the safety, the security properties of your model. And if you want to move forward on that, there's a lot of research, but having the data available in open source to help assessing what your model is supposed to do helps a lot. Having data as well, not to train, but to test the model. It's extremely important. You need data because most of the time, in order to assess a model, you need to test it, to run a lot of evaluation on it. So you need good data to do it. When you have a software generating model, you need a lot of software code to test it. So all those tools and resources you need to ensure safety and security, to try to ensure safety and security of AI models. It's really daunting, especially since for a long time we have been focusing on reliability of models. Now we know that AI models do have, it's not new, but people are starting to realize that they have security issues. I mean, you may have a Trojan in a model. Like in any other software. A lot of people didn't know that 2 years ago. So researchers knew, but companies didn't know. So yeah, it's becoming a very pressing issue that we see. And I believe that having both the open source models and data that helped learning it could help the researcher to assess those models.
Eurico, just wondering if you had perspectives to share either from your university experience on the value of open software, on the potential security risks that you've faced.
Yeah, I'd like a second for the last questions. What we have done national level, we are trying to support the national strategy about open science that is led by the Ministry of Higher Education, included the national policy that will give us this support at international level. Angola seeks to play a more active role with UNESCO in the regional activities that we have participated in. As we could see, the strategic partnership about Angola, Mexico, and UNESCO, we are trying to create a chair in the University Oscar Ribas so that we can strengthen all this process and construct outputs that will support the global policy in our country. So is something new, and we are so happy that maybe next years Angola can be or can be considered as a pivotal point here in Africa to spread all this initiative. What we expect with this initiative is to strengthen open access, cooperation with others, part of the global, understand perfectly the importance of the artificial intelligence and digital inclusion, so that when we take decisions, all these points can take by the government and spread to the national territory is something that I'd like to add in my first talk.
Thank you. I just wanted to give each of you now the opportunity to say you were, because I think it's important to also zoom out and realize what's at stake for people in broader society. We can talk about the benefits to research, to software engineers themselves, but if, for instance, each of you were to be sat around the dinner table with a family member saying, you know, why is this infrastructure, why is what you're building so important? How is it going to affect me? Perhaps you can each think of an example for that. Tanja, would you like?
Well, before, if you allow me, I want to make a comment on what Cédric said, because what you were saying and the problems you have with testing open source models, that is basically what I consider a software engineering problem. Because your models and your AI, that is software. And we already have difficulty testing deterministic systems in traditional software engineering. But now, I mean, testing non-deterministic systems is far more challenging, you know, and that is why we need to not let go of software engineering and focus on that. That's just if you allow me to say this thing. Now about the open infrastructure, if we look at specifically the Software Heritage Archive, I think there's, and we've seen a lot of examples today, you know, and I think Roberto presented a lot of research that was already done to look at all this data that is there to detect patterns on how people develop software. I think there was even a study on gender, so we can see what is the ratio of how many women are developing and men. And maybe in the future, since what I say, since how we develop software is going to change, maybe we can also find this in this archive, no? Because there must be a point in time where we can actually see that the software is actually changing, so we can research that and learn from that. So that is what I think we should do from the repository, learn on how to make better software.
Omar, lessons to share?
Yeah, thanks. Thank you very much. So here, a lot of lessons to share is that this belongs to all of us. This is humanity. This is the public good is really at the heart. It's the name of our panel. And a public good really is what is, we won't be able to achieve the sustainable development goals are about education and leaving no one behind and right of minorities and empowering everybody and giving health to everybody. And these would not be done without technology. That is for sure. Technology not only we can leapfrog, and only technology will allow a lot of countries to leapfrog. You cannot talk about health or education or environment or any of the big problems SDGs trying to address without technology. But we shouldn't be, that's not a technology that is driven by commercial profit. That's a technology that is really driven by the interest of the public good. And here's the power of open source. We are this community, all of us, that really are passionate. How can we channel that passion, how we move that passion into answering some of these problems? And again, huge thanks to Roberto and the incredible team of the Software Heritage for safeguarding this heritage, this public good that we all gonna rely on. And just to also add, I was very happy, thank you Roberto, for mentioning the UN open source principles. We're very honored that Software Heritage is the last organization to endorse them as of today. Okay, sorry, another show of hands. Raise your hand if you endorse the UN open source principles. Oh, thank you. So I can use that for a minute to talk about it, is that we take open source for granted. And here we, as United Nations, wanted to enshrine, what does it mean, open source? What are the principles behind open source? There's obviously the four initial principles, like the fundamental principle of open source, but we wanted to add more to them. And here are 8 principles. Please Google them, you can find them. The first one is really the most important, and we try to also employ it on ourselves, is open by default. That going forward, whatever we do, it has to be by default open. The second principle is also very important, is contribute back. Open source is not one way. You have to give back. The third one is how to incentivize, call it RISE, for recognize and incentivize the people who work for you. The fifth one is about they just make sense. I've never heard anybody violently opposing any of these principles because they just make sense, but it is important that we enshrine them. And we have by now, very happy, we had OSI as the first entity to recognize them, and then we have now most players in the open source field. Thanks, Brian, for Red Hat. We have Eclipse, Linux Foundation. Most big foundations have endorsed them. And happy to announce that we have by now a first government to endorse them. The French government is the first one, and the South African is the second government. And we have by now the first city. Barcelona is the first city to endorse them, and Friday we announced the first regional government. So the German federal state of Schleswig-Holstein will be the first regional government to endorse them. So this is a call for all of you. Please endorse the UN, add your voice to this UN open source principle, and let's make sure this becomes the standard going forward.
Thanks, Omar. And Cédric, correct me if I'm wrong, but presumably you're sitting on all of this powerful infrastructure, and you must be, to some extent, fighting forces that say, we want to keep this to ourselves. We want this to benefit our citizens. How do you go about explaining, no, this is beneficial not just for us, that's beneficial for everyone. And actually the fact that it's beneficial for everyone means that it's especially beneficial for us, if that makes sense. You probably wouldn't word it that way at all. But.
First, I would like to emphasize the fact that providing public computing services together with open source software not only foster a good research on education services, it also foster business. It's important to emphasize that. There's also a return on investment. It costs money, but it brings money. Even for most of our users are academics, public institutions. We also have a lot of groups, SMEs, startups. And when you have an innovative idea and you are starting in the big world, having all those public goods, it helps a lot to start and to launch your products, to make your ideas real. So I believe it has to be reminded that it's not just about research education, it's the main focus, but also at the end of the day, it benefits everyone because it helps a lot of people and companies producing useful products and services. So there's also a business side to it. Regarding how it can serve everyone, the only example I can give you is that basically on our infrastructure we have around, last year it was around 1,600 projects, and it covers all the topics. I mean, from theoretical physics to biology and healthcare, humanities, industry, R&D, I mean, all sectors. And really people are using those hardware and software tools, which are provided for free, for almost everything, from theoretical research to very applied research. At the end of the day, it really benefits, I mean, every one of us in all the dimensions of our lives. Once again, from healthcare, from the mobility, from the energy. So it's really our main motivation, providing those resources. We know, because we see it, that people use them to provide all those benefits for all of us. It may take a little bit of time because it's research. It might take a few years. But at the end of the day, the return on investment is very interesting, I believe.
Thank you. And Eurico, are you seeing these benefits reach your university, Angola, what you're doing as well? Any thoughts on what you've just heard?
What we have done with our universities align with the strategy of the government through the Ministry of Higher Education. And Angola is committed to deepen international cooperation and contributing to global knowledge as a common good. So everything we have done until this moment, we know that every region in the world have a different development, and Angola is giving the first. We are in the first steps of this process, but we in last 5 years we have constructed a very strong partnership that has helped us to present to the government the importance of this initiative. So we have the support of our government to go ahead with not only with open source digitalization or artificial intelligence, because we are working as a focal point, but all the solutions has to be constructed in public and private institutions. So from our perspective, the government should accelerate the approval of the national strategy or the national policy about open science, because with this national strategy, things will be more easier, because we lack a law that can guide all the university, all the centers of research, and all those institutions that are trying to make something about this process.
Thank you so much. Well, I've learned an awful lot, not just how to turn on a microphone, but that was useful as well. Thank you so much for Software Heritage and to UNESCO for inviting me along today. It's been absolutely fascinating, given me a lot to think about in terms of future reports as well. So don't hesitate to get in touch with me on those topics. And thank you very much for listening to this panel. I'd now like to thank Eurico, Omar, Cédric, and Tanja, and thank you all for listening.